I was delivering a box of bedroom toys to Julian and his new girlfriend when the avalanche hit. Julian scooped her up and sprinted away, pausing only to grab her lace lingerie. I begged him to take me too. Without a shred of mercy he said, "Why are you so selfish? I can only carry one person, do you want Brielle to die?" Then he shoved me aside and watched the whiteout swallow me whole. 3 days later, when they pulled me out and wheeled me into the hospital, I learned I had been 3 months pregnant. Eleanor's hand shook as she clasped mine, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. "Child, the Ashcroft family owes you. You're already pregnant. For the baby's sake, forgive him just this once, won't you?" I stared blankly. Right, I still had the baby. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. I lay in the hospital bed, every inch of me throbbing as though my bones had been fed through a grinder. Eleanor sat beside me, clutching the sonogram printout. "Serena," her voice cracked. "That animal Julian, he'll pay for this. But you're having a child now. A child needs an intact family." I shook my head, tears slipped down in silence. 10 years of marriage, and Julian had cheated more times than I could count. I swallowed every insult and stayed. An entire decade. I had run the Ashcroft household single-handedly, stood beside him at every business gala, even groveled before my late father's old contacts when Ashcroft teetered on bankruptcy. And Julian slept with every woman willing, starlets, lingerie models, college girls, even my best friend. Each time, I swallowed it. Because on her deathbed Eleanor had squeezed my hand and whispered, "Serena, you must make a life with Julian." But now I lay in agony while he saved his new fling and left me to freeze. My fingertips brushed the flat of my stomach. Inside was a life. A piece of me. The only family I had left on earth. Did I really want to give a child a family like this? While I warred with myself, the doctor rolled in the ultrasound machine. The air in the room seemed to freeze. Eleanor scrambled out of the way, eyes fixed on the black and white screen with naked hope. "Mrs. Ashcroft, let's check everything." I nodded, fingers knotting the sheet. The cold gel hit my skin and I flinched. The moment the probe touched me, the doctor's brow furrowed. The monitor showed a blur of grays. The tiny life that should have flickered was still. His fingers flew over the keypad, tweaking settings, but the crease between his eyes only deepened. "Is something wrong?" Eleanor asked, voice trembling. He didn't answer right away, sweat beaded on his forehead. Finally he drew a long breath. "I need the chief of obstetrics." My heart plunged. 10 minutes later 3 specialists hovered around the screen, murmuring. The glances they traded iced my veins. At last the eldest turned, face grim. "Mrs. Ashcroft." His tone was heavy. "I'm sorry, the fetus has stopped developing." Eleanor shot to her feet. "What do you mean, stopped?" "This morning you said the baby was fine." He spoke softly. "The hypothermia, the oxygen deprivation during the avalanche, plus severe physical trauma, the embryo couldn't survive. Extreme cold and lack of oxygen are catastrophic in the first trimester, and with your injuries, we can't detect a fetal heartbeat." My gaze fixed on his moving mouth, a roar filled my ears. He kept talking, D&C procedure, post-op recovery, but I drifted far away. I saw Julian again, sprinting down the slope with Jordan in his arms, heard his voice, "Why are you so selfish?" A laugh escaped me. Selfish, was I? Julian cheated, yet it was my baby who paid with its life. Where was the fairness in that? What was selfish, what was selfless? The little being I hadn't even felt had simply vanished? Eleanor's tears fell as she crushed me in her arms. "Serena, Serena." I hung limp, something clogging my throat. "Serena. Serena?" Her trembling hand touched my cheek, only then did I realize my face was soaked. "Eleanor." My whisper was almost nothing. "The Ashcrofts and I, we're even." She jerked, fingers clamping my wrist, tears splashing my skin. "Serena, don't. I know Julian wronged you." I stared at the white ceiling, memories flooding in. Julian and I weren't supposed to end like this. We had grown up side by side, true childhood sweethearts. When I was 6 and couldn't recite a poem, Mom made me stand in the corner. Julian sneaked me through the study window, stood outside the wall, kept me company and told me jokes. The winter I was 12, I burned with fever. Rain lashed the windows, I huddled under quilts, broth after broth, my temperature still climbing. Half delirious, I heard the door creak. A boy soaked with night rain stepped in. I forced my eyes open. Julian stood at my bedside. His hair dripped, his school blazer was drenched, but he hugged a paper parcel to his chest. Radiant grin. Candied apricots from King, he announced, unfolding glistening amber halves, my favorite treat. My nose stung. King was way south, 3 hours by car, longer in such a storm. Are you insane? I meant to scold, but it came out a rasp. What if you get sick? You know how awful it is. You never watch out for yourself. He only shrugged, teenage eyes bright in candle flame. I'm a man, achoo. Hurry and eat, this was their last box today. I'll buy more tomorrow, whenever you want. Sure enough, he ended up with a raging fever, bedridden for 2 weeks, nearly carted to ICU. At 18 we lost our parents. When staff from the group knocked, Julian and I were video chatting about which new bubble tea place to try that weekend, which cake to order. I don't remember falling, only the phone clattering and Julian shouting my name through the shattered screen. When I came to, I was already in his arms. I don't know when he'd burst through my door, but his arm was locked so tight around me it hurt, his voice choking. Serena, Serena, don't be afraid. Look at me. You still have me, you'll always have me. The day of the funeral it poured. I stood in front of the mourning hall in a black dress, overhearing relatives whisper, "What's the girl going to do now? And the Vance company is probably finished." My whole body shook. I wanted nothing more than to die right there with my parents. Suddenly a warm hand closed over my icy fingers. Julian had appeared beside me, his shoulders already broader than mine. "Don't be afraid," he murmured in my ear, steady as any 18-year-old could be. "I'll stay with you, always." From that day on he carried both the Ashcroft and Vance families by himself. When we were 20 he said, "Serena, I'll treat you well for the rest of our lives, will you marry me?" In the early years we really were happy. He would tiptoe in after late nights at the office to kiss my forehead. I would knot his tie for him at dawn. But when did it start to change? Maybe the night 3 years ago when a storm kept him out until sunrise. Next morning I smelled foreign perfume on his shirt. He told me I was imagining things. Later he came home later and later, the perfumes layering one on another. Finally I saw a magazine spread of him wrapped around a famous actress. He sneered, "Serena, spare me the victim act. It's a business marriage, surely you didn't take it seriously?" I lay curled on the hospital bed, the cramping in my stomach and the ice in my heart melting into one dark blur. The monitor's steady beep reminded me of what I'd lost. Suddenly her phone rang. Eleanor glanced at the screen and frowned. She patted my hand. "It's Julian." I turned my face away. She answered and hit speaker. "Grandma," Julian's voice oozed through, artificially sweet, "where are you?" "I'll send the car. Brielle keeps saying how much she wants to see you." I bit my lip so hard it bled. Jordan, the woman he'd pulled from the avalanche, was upstairs in a VIP suite. They said Julian had rented the whole floor and flown in the best plastic surgeon because Jordan had a frostbite scar smaller than a fingernail. Eleanor said coldly, "I'm with Serena. She just woke up, she needs family." A few seconds of silence. "Oh." His tone cooled. "When are you coming?" "About Brielle's hand, didn't you say you know that miracle doctor with the special ointment?" "Julian." Eleanor's voice cracked like a whip. "Serena lost the baby, your child, and all you care about is that woman's hand? What baby?" Julian asked, honestly puzzled. Eleanor's whole body trembled. "What baby?" "Serena was 3 months pregnant." "It's gone and you can't even be bothered to ask?" More silence, then a soft laugh from the phone. "Really?" he said, airy and mocking, "news to me. After all, how do I know it was mine?" The words drove straight into my heart like a blade. Eleanor went white. She shot to her feet, voice shaking. "Say that again, Julian." "Grandma, calm down," he drawled. "Serena and I haven't slept together in 6 months. A sudden pregnancy, does that even make sense?" I clenched the sheet, shaking so hard the bed frame rattled. He had actually forgotten. Eleanor swayed, almost falling. "You, animal. After all Serena's done these 10 years, you can stand there and..." I closed my eyes, tears slid into my hair, an impatient sigh crackled over the line. "Grandma, what's done is done." It was her fate. "All I can say is, tough." "Julian," I finally spoke, hoarse, "let's divorce." The line went dead quiet. A few heartbeats later his voice came back, taut with something I couldn't name. "Serena, you think threatening me will work?" "Not a threat," I said quietly. "A notification." "Fine." "Great," he barked. The decree will be on your nightstand tomorrow, don't come crying later. The call cut off, leaving the room in frozen silence. Eleanor sank into the chair, tears streaming. Serena. I failed you. I shook my head and brushed the tears from her cheeks. Grandma, it's not your fault. At dawn, a lawyer from Ashcroft delivered a blank divorce decree. I lay against the headboard, fingertips gliding over the paper. 10 years of marriage, reduced to this single featherlight sheet. He hadn't even bothered listing assets. Apparently I deserved nothing. I tugged the corner of my mouth, lifted the pen, and signed without hesitation. Serena. The moment the final stroke dried, I felt lighter than air. The lawyer hesitated. Mrs. Ashcroft, not anymore. I cut him off coolly. Please tell Mr. Ashcroft we're even as of today. Take the papers, have him sign whenever. After he left, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. A deep male voice answered at once. Ready? I kept my voice soft. Wait for me. A brief pause, then a low chuckle. Always. I'll be here. I hung up and stared out the window. Sunlight poured through the glass, dazzling me like another lifetime. Time to leave. But before I go, one thing remains. 3 days later, at the Blackwell auction, the final lot is my mother's jade bracelet, her most treasured keepsake, designed by my father as a love token. She never took it off. After my parents died, the bracelet vanished. I never dreamed it would surface here. The room is packed with Harborview elite. I pick the darkest corner. Lot after lot hammers down for astronomical sums. At last her bracelet appears. I raise my paddle. 10 million. A hush, then someone counters 12. I lift again. 15. Just then the doors burst open. Julian strides in, hand on Jordan's waist. Gasps ripple across the hall. The auctioneer rushes over, obsequious. Mr. Ashcroft. What an honor. Julian's bored gaze flicks to the bracelet and lingers a heartbeat. Heard there was a decent piece of jade today. Jordan coos against his shoulder. Julian, that bracelet is gorgeous. He pinches her cheek and lifts his paddle. Opening bid, without limit. The room falls deathly silent, every eye turns to me. It felt as though he were mocking me, my own husband placing an opening bid without limit for another woman right in front of my eyes. He knew it had belonged to my mother. He knew I would be here today. And still he chose to shred my dignity and turn me into a clown. I crushed the paddle in my fist, hatred roaring like a tide in my chest. Julian, I rasped, let me have the jade bracelet, all right? He lifted a brow, eyes glinting with amusement. On what grounds? It's important to me, you know that, I said, fighting the tremor in my voice. I'll trade you something else for it. Jordan suddenly laughed, slipping her arm through his. Why do you have to fight me for everything? Julian gave a soft snort and signaled the attendant to bring the bracelet over. The jade was presented on a velvet tray, its milky white surface glowing gently under the lights, just as it had when my mother wore it on her wrist years ago. Julian picked it up and deliberately flashed it in front of me before turning to Jordan with a tender smile. Try it on. Jordan shot me a smug glance and stretched out her slim wrist. Julian began sliding the bracelet toward her hand, and the moment it was about to slip over her knuckles, he let go. The jade struck the floor with a sharp crack. It shattered, pieces flying in every direction. I stood frozen, every drop of blood in my veins reversing course. Julian glanced at the broken shards and offered an indifferent smile. Oops. Slippery fingers. Jordan covered her mouth in theatrical dismay. Oh dear, what a pity. My vision blurred, a buzzing filled my ears until the only sound left was the bracelet's dying ring. Julian bent to my ear, voice soft as a viper's tongue. Serena, trash from a whore like your mother doesn't deserve to exist. Everything inside my skull detonated at once. Then the words someone once told me floated up, and I slowly crouched and began gathering the splinters. A razor edge sliced my fingertip, blood blossomed across the pale jade. Julian seized my wrist. Quit the pity act. Planning to run to grandmother again? I looked up at the man I had loved for more than a decade, and laughed. So this was how ridiculously it had all begun. Julian, I whispered, you're going to regret this. He didn't come after me. He probably assumed I'd race home with red-rimmed eyes, barricade myself in my room, cry until dawn, and emerge pretending nothing happened, just like always. Then he couldn't find me anywhere, and panic began gnawing at him. After turning the city inside out, he drove to the Ashcroft estate. But Eleanor refused to see him. Julian kicked the front door open, eyes bloodshot. Grandmother. Why won't you face me? The housekeeper blocked the foot of the stairs, quaking. Young master, the old madam says she doesn't wish. Out of my way. He shoved past, stormed up the steps, and pounded on her door. You'll abandon your own grandson for Serena? Where the hell is she? She won't even answer her phone. A tomb-like silence answered from inside. Julian hammered the panel so hard paint flaked off. What kind of spell has she cast on you? Tell her to show herself, this disappearing act is insane. At last the door inched open. Eleanor stood framed in the gap, her aged face utterly expressionless. She gave a cold laugh. How dare you still look for her? Enough. Julian cut in, chest heaving. This is the debt Serena owes me. Her mother seduced my father and got them both killed, yet you take her side? Eleanor's pupils shrank, she swung her arm and slapped him hard. The crack echoed down the corridor. Julian's head snapped sideways, a thread of blood gleamed at the corner of his mouth, but he chuckled hoarsely. Truth hurts, does it? He lifted glittering eyes. If Serena's mom hadn't texted my dad to meet her at that hotel, they'd never have driven into that crash. The Vance family owes the Ashcrofts 2 lives, Serena will never clear that debt. Eleanor trembled from head to toe. Where did you hear such filth? Julian sneered. Jordan's parents were eyewitnesses, they saw the message Serena's mother sent my father. Jordan? Eleanor's eyes flared wide, then she loosed a piercing laugh. You destroyed Serena, and your Aunt Ashcroft, on the word of a mistress? She lurched forward, fisting his lapel. Listen well, Julian. It was nothing like that. Julian froze. Your parents and Serena's were friends for over 20 years. Tears streamed down Eleanor's cheeks. The 4 of them went out that day to buy you a birthday present. That crash, she choked, was orchestrated by our rivals. They paid a driver to ram your parents' car. I kept the truth from you because I feared you'd rush off seeking revenge. Julian's face drained to chalk. No. Brielle said. Brielle? Eleanor gave a bitter smile. Her parents were servants to the Whitfields, one of the very clans that murdered your mother and father. The words detonated like thunder. Julian staggered back, his lips quivered. It can't be, can't it? Eleanor hurled a stack of yellowed photographs. They fluttered across the carpet, snapshots taken outside a toy store the day before the accident, all 4 parents smiling as they held an exquisite model racing car, the limited edition one Julian had coveted since childhood. Even at the very end, she sobbed, they were thinking of your birthday gift. Julian dropped to his knees, fingers shaking as he clutched one photo. The world spun like a deranged carousel. When Jordan first told him her poisonous story, his universe had collapsed, hatred seeped through his heart like venom. He remembered how Serena's mother used to ruffle his hair and cook his favorite sweet and sour ribs. He'd told himself it had all been an act. He remembered how Serena's eyes brimmed with love whenever she looked at him. He'd told herself she was atoning for her mother's sin. How could he not hate? How could he not exact payment? Each time he wounded her, he felt no relief, only a deeper agony. He had thought the pain meant his vengeance was incomplete. He had believed that if only she suffered more, the hollow inside him might finally fill. But now, everything was a lie? The photo slipped from his grip. Julian doubled over, guts convulsing with violent nausea, and retched helplessly. Images flashed behind his eyes. The whiteout, him striding away with Jordan in his arms while Serena screamed his name. The hospital, her face bloodless as the doctor pronounced their child gone, while he sneered, good riddance. The auction, deliberately dropping the jade bracelet and watching her kneel to collect the shards. What had he done? Arg! Julian let out a heartrending roar and smashed his fist against the floor. Bone cracked, blood streamed, yet he felt no pain. Far worse was the agony of feeling his heart torn in two. He had loved Serena for more than 10 years. Then he had tormented her in every way imaginable. And now they told him it had all been a lie from start to finish? Serena. He spoke her name through trembling lips, a metallic sweetness rising in his throat. The next second, he blacked out. When Julian came to, his mouth tasted of rust. He slammed his fist into the nightstand, a tumbler shattered. Young master. The butler rushed in, aghast. Your hand, where's Jordan? Julian lifted his head, the savagery in his eyes sent the old man back 2 steps. Miss John is in the Ritz-Carlton penthouse. Before the sentence ended, Julian snatched the car keys and bolted. He would drag Jordan out and haul her to Serena to apologize. He would confess how grotesquely wrong he had been, how much he loved Serena. Inside the penthouse, Jordan was streaming live. She blew kisses at the lens, gauze still theatrically wrapped round her wrist. "It's so much better, thanks to the miracle doctor." CEO Ashcroft flew in. The door crashed open, her phone hit the rug. "Julian?" She forced a coquettish smile. "What are you, ah?" He seized her jaw and rammed her against the wall. His heel ground the phone to shards. When he made his purpose clear, Jordan panicked. "Julian. Let me explain." She clawed at his wrist, but his grip was iron. "Explain?" A cold laugh slit through his rage. "Explain how you lied? Explain how you drove my wife and me apart." He flung her loose, she crumpled, coughing. "No. I loved you," she sobbed, tears on cue, "the rest I only learnt later." Julian looked down at her, disgusted. How could he ever have believed this woman? "Learnt later?" He stooped, snatched the cracked phone. The screen still glowed on her broadcast, viewers praising her swift recovery. With a sneer he tossed it at her feet. "I thought your hand was frostbitten?" Jordan's face froze. She hid the hand behind her back. The gauze had long since vanished, not even a red mark remained. Enough," he cut in, voice like shaved ice. "Your performance is over. But your life will be useful, when you beg my wife for forgiveness." He turned to leave. Jordan flung herself at his legs. "Julian. You can't do this to me. I gave everything for you." "Serena, what is she?" He shook her off so violently she crashed into the coffee table. Crystal flew. "Never speak her name," he warned, murder in his eyes. "You're not fit." Jordan cackled from the floor, shrill and broken. "Think remorse will save you, Julian?" She lifted her head, a vengeful ghost. "The joke is you actually believed she cheated. You never trusted her, and Serena will never forgive you. You remember the way she looked at you when you abandoned her? That orphan finally had a child of her own, and you killed it. Do you really think she'll ever forgive you?" Julian's breath stuttered. Of course he remembered. That last glimpse Serena had given him before the avalanche swallowed her, disappointment, anguish, and release. But he had the rest of his life to apologize. A lifetime was long, and someday Serena would forgive him. "Julian found me 6 months later. I was crouched in the garden, tying Little's undone shoelace. Thank you, Teacher Serena." The girl beamed and scampered off. I straightened, brushing grass from my skirt. Nearby, Theodore was encircled by shrieking children, hapless as they smeared him with clay, his handsome face freckled with mud, smiling brighter than the sun. "Serena," he called. "Help! These imps want to bury me in pottery." Laughing, I went to rescue him. The children promptly turned on me, clambering over me like chattering sparrows. "Teacher Ashcroft plays favorites." Little pouted. "She always saves Teacher Whitfield." Theodore wiped a streak of clay from his cheek and winked. "What can I say? I'm her #1 fan." Sunlight danced in his eyes. For 6 months this heir to the Whitfield billions had trekked with me from Africa to South America to this mountain hamlet, forsaking his inheritance to build orphanages at my side. I couldn't help laughing, until a scorching gaze froze the sound in my throat. Julian stood outside the iron gate. He had lost weight, a black trench coat hung from broad shoulders, and the eyes once filled with hauteur were bloodshot, fixed on Theodore's hand resting on my shoulder. "Serena." The children quieted in curiosity. Little hid behind me. "Teacher, who's that uncle? He looks like a beggar." Before I could answer, Julian shoved the gate open and strode in. "Get your hands off her." He wrenched Theodore away and swung his fist. "Julian!" I screamed, jumping between them. "Have you lost your mind?" Theodore staggered, dabbed blood from his lip, gaze cooling. "Mr. Ashcroft, long time no see." Julian's chest heaved. "Stay away from her." "The one who needs to stay away," Theodore replied evenly, "is you. I warned you at your wedding, hurt her and I wouldn't sit idle." The word stabbed Julian, his fists uncurled. I drew a steady breath, handed the children to the hurrying nun, then faced Julian. "We need to talk." His fingers trembled, he wanted to touch me but didn't dare. "Serena, I searched everywhere, I knew he wasn't lying." Theodore had promised to hide me, and he had. 6 months had been enough, time for the wounds to scar, for my heart to feel nothing when I looked at Julian. "What do you want?" I asked calmly. "I signed the divorce decree." It was blank. "I never signed. We're still married." Emotion cracked his voice. "I never wanted a divorce, all those vicious things were Jordan's lies." "I know. Eleanor told me." His eyes lit, he reached for my hand. "Then you forgive me? Let's go home." I took a step back, out of his reach. "Julian." I kept my voice low. "Do you know why I came to this orphanage?" He froze. "I'm here to atone for my child, the one who never got to be born, and for these kids, every one of them parentless." I watched the children chase one another in the distance. "Just like me. When I was little, I lost my parents. When I grew up, my husband abandoned me too." Julian's face drained of color. "The day of the avalanche, you were the one who cast me aside." He dropped to his knees with a thud, tears slamming against the dust. "I was wrong. Let me spend my whole life making it up to you. Please, just forgive me this once." Like a sobbing child, he clutched the hem of my skirt. "Serena, I love you. Don't doubt me, okay? You're the only woman I've ever loved." I never touched them. "I only wanted to hurt you." I believed him, of course I did, but none of it mattered anymore. His tears scalded, yet my heart stayed cold. "Julian, that isn't love." I peeled his fingers off, one by one. "Love is the hand that holds tight during an avalanche, not the one that shoves you away, Serena." His voice fractured, scraped raw from his chest. "Believe me one more time, just once." I stared into his bloodshot eyes and saw the boy of 20, trembling under the crabapple tree as he proposed, looking ready to cry even then. He had been ecstatic, terrified I might say anything but yes. Back then, he had truly loved me. "So what, Julian?" I whispered. "I believe you never slept with them." His eyes lit for an instant. "But you let them near you on purpose. You left me clues of betrayals you'd invented. You watched me fall apart again and again." My gaze stayed calm. "That cruelty cuts deeper than any real affair." He went stone still. Children's laughter drifted from afar. Sunlight filtered through the grape leaves, dappling the space between us. "Do you know?" I smiled. "During the 3 days I lay buried, I had a long dream. I dreamed that at 12 you ran a fever yet still grinned because you'd found me candied apricots. I dreamed that when my relatives came to carve up the Vance fortune, you stood in front of me like a wild animal guarding its pup. And I dreamed." My voice cracked. 18-year-old Julian was beside me, frantic, but he couldn't touch me, couldn't pull me out, he could only watch the snow swallow me. Julian's breathing stopped, his mouth opened, but no sound emerged. "Julian," I said, stroking his face one last time, saying goodbye to the us we used to be. "I don't love you anymore." Theodore tapped the car horn in the distance. The kids were leaving for their picnic. I turned and walked away. "Serena." I never looked back. 5 years later, the Aegean was so blue it felt capable of washing the past clean. I stood before a tiny white chapel, watching Theodore show a ring of local children how to fold paper boats. Sunlight crowned his smiling eyes with impossible tenderness. Miss Ashcroft, little, now inches taller, ran over with a camera. "Let me take your wedding pictures." Laughing, I adjusted my veil, then felt a frigid stare. Spinning around, I saw Jordan. She lurked in the alley's shadows, nothing left of her once polished glamour. Hair dull and brittle, cheeks sunken, only her hate-filled eyes were unchanged. "Serena." Her voice sounded poison-roughened, my name a viper's hiss. "You actually managed to be happy?" Instinct sent me stepping back, but Theodore was surrounded by kids, too far. "You know how I've lived these 5 years?" Jordan pulled a fruit knife from a grimy purse. "Sold to some hellhole, treated worse than a dog." The blade flashed. "All because of you." I whirled to run, she yanked my veil. "Die." As the knife flashed forward, a dark figure slammed between us. Blood spattered across my gown. Julian sank to his knees, the knife buried in his heart. "Julian? Why was he here?" Jordan froze, then cackled like a madwoman. "Good, perfect." Sirens wailed closer, she stumbled back, shot me one final glare, and fled. But I didn't chase her. Julian's blood poured too fast for my palms to staunch. Don't be scared. He struggled to wipe my tears, smearing blood across my cheek. I'm okay. The Aegean wind swallowed his words. Only then did I notice, our wedding ring still circled his finger. Our child. His breathing faltered. I saw her in a dream, a little girl as beautiful as you. She said Daddy was a bad man. When Theodore arrived with the police, Julian's eyes had closed. His final words rode the sea breeze into my ear. Serena. Eleanor's gone too. I'm going down, to say sorry to Mom and Dad, to Eleanor, and to our baby. You have to live well. Later we raised a stone for him, facing the open sea. Theodore told me Julian had followed us for 5 years, Africa to Greece. He had never signed the divorce decree. Every year on my birthday he bought boxes of candied apricots, just like the day he was 12 and braved a downpour to bring them to me. Thanks for listening to today's story. If you liked it, please like and share with friends. We look forward to your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more great tales. See you next time.